2012 wasn't quite the end of the world, but it was a year of monumental camera releases. Canon dropped the 5D Mark III. Fujifilm juiced out the X Pro 1. Nikon went full-on beast mode with the D800. Sony, however, continued the trend of releasing strange yet uniquely designed cameras that year. They gave us a box-shaped, button-covered crop sensor camera with a heart full of dreams and a fully rotating screen. They gave us the FS100.
Sony's design engineers were clearly hard about this camera.
I'd like to show you one of the world's great cameras.
This video is sponsored by OBSBot, but we're gonna talk about them a little bit later. Wow. In our last episode of Retro Review, we talked about a weird Sony camera that also came out in 2012, which was a full-frame Sony Handycam called the NEX VG900. In this era of Sony cameras, they were clearly venturing into new territory with their designs and experimenting with things. And also they still had their somewhat normal style cameras too, with their cyber shots, the NEX7 mirrorless, and the RX1. But we have to keep in mind that this was 2012, which was before the mirrorless revolution, which meant that all cameras are basically pimped out exhibit style with photo and video specs that'll make your butt cheeks quiver.
Well, we learned to wash our balls a long time ago.
I don't know, maybe I'm canceled. New year, new me. But with their video line of cameras, it's pretty obvious they were just trying to figure out what works best for the shooter, which is why you have a camera that looks like the NEX VG900 next to the FS100, which are totally different designs that came out the exact same year.
The design team in Japan were extremely keen to learn about every aspect of what I needed as a user.
There are so many meaningful feedbacks. Our engineer and our product planner got very good inspiration to develop a new large sensor format camcorder.
For the first time, I think, in history, customers like myself have been asked to come into Sony and help design a camera.
So in 2012, for around $6,000, depending on which combo deal you got, what exactly were you paying for? A sexy Super 35mm sensor, 1080p footage all the way up to 60 frames per second. And yeah, it has a max bitrate of 28, steady shot active stabilization, a 3.5-inch fully articulating bendable screen. Well, it's not bendable, you can go tilt. You can tilt it. XLR audio input and full-size HDMI output. And honestly, like, what more could you need? Back up, back up. Ooh. Charger, adapter, wall power here for battery, dummy battery, component cables. That in itself is retro, dude. And then of course we have the FS100, which is such a strange style body. I mean, you could actually seriously rig this thing out, and I might have to do that. Very robust looking headphone jack. Gigantic battery compartment. You have tons of controls here on the left side of the camera. Of course, you got your flip out LCD screen, which rotates a little bit on each side, and also does a full vlog mode. Look how absolutely scuffed this thing is. And the star of the show is, of course, this Super 35mm sensor. Let's see if we can get this thing up and running. I have a Fat Daddy NPF battery here. It's very pee-pee shaped, if we're being honest. Oh yeah, baby! 2011! Oh my gosh, that's crazy! That actually looks kind of nice. What the heck? Seems like it's set up relatively intuitively. So I'm gonna go through my sponsored segment, but don't click away because I'm gonna test autofocus and the external shotgun audio going directly into this camera while we do the sponsored segment. That's really creative, Zach. Wow, good YouTubing. So today's video is sponsored by OBSBot. Is this autofocus gonna work? That's the question. OBSBot makes really unique cameras kind of built for live streaming. So they sent me one called the Tail Air, which is a 4K live streaming camera. It can also do HD up to 60 frames per second, 4K 30, you know the deal. It's a great camera for live streaming because it can automatically track your movements using their app. You can just select a subject and it will follow you. It'll zoom in and out, and it's got really great quality. It has a 1.8 lens, so it's good in low light. Also, how's our autofocus looking? It's looking relatively decent in a controlled setting like this. I mean, that's relatively fast. Sometimes I've noticed it misses pretty bad, but right now I have focus peaking turned on and it will have peaking and autofocus on at the same time. You can use the tail air camera for live streaming. You can just plug in the HDMI to a converter and use it with OBS or any sort of streaming service. Oh, it looks like the focus is off, but how is the audio sounding? I have the FX30's shotgun mic that comes with the FX3, FX30 top handle attached to this.
So now we're recording internally with a micro SD card on the tail air in 4K, high bit rate, and there's no lights going on in my room right now. It's a gloomy day, so it does a good job in low light too, which is nice if you're streaming in the dark or something. Thank you so much to Obsbot for sponsoring this video. If you guys want to support this channel, click the link in the description just to check it out, see what you think, and let's move onward.
You can actually fold the screen down like an old film camera and do like top-down shooting like this, which actually serves this style of camera body pretty well. I was doing manual focus for my other test footage and it was really hard to judge if something's actually in focus, even with the peaking. And I think it's because the screen is such a low resolution. Let's go this way. Come on, let's go this way. I guess I'll switch it to slow-mo, see what happens. HD is what we want, but we want 60p. Broaden her up a little bit, all right. Hey guys, welcome back to my segment, Filmmaker Reacts. I'm the first person on YouTube to ever use this concept, and today we're checking out 3 trailers for feature films that were shot on the FS100. Trailer number 1, Church of Fears.
For Cecilia and her friends, going to church was a big joke.
Dude, that's Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man 3. Dude, that's sick.
And I see you brought some friends with you this evening.
Yeah, they're my friends from school and around.
I like how they just walked into the room and then the next shot is them back outside of the room.
So we went to go check on her and all we saw was her full of blood.
Church of Fears.
Movie number 2 is called Death to Prom. Death to Prom. Here we go.
Who's your date gonna be?
I might design the look of it, but actually attending...
That's a nice looking frame there. I don't know, it looks like they're using nice lenses, but even the grade looks pretty good.
Most people don't understand what we do.
I bet I would.
Look at that, they're filming on the shadow side. The lighting looks pretty good. All right, all right.
This will be a prom not to forget.
That trailer was way better. Let's see what the IMDb rating was. So it got a 6.4 out of 10, which is making me curious what the first one got, which was 4.9 out of 10 for Church of Fears. Okay, we have one last one, which is called Kontiki. This one feels more like a legit movie to me.
Look around you. Every book in here offers some theory or another.
Some good shots.
Mr. Hardo.
I mean, this movie would have to have a pretty legit budget to pull this off, right? What the heck? I mean, I'm sure that's CG, but in 720p, it looks pretty freaking good. I don't know. Still really no idea what that one's about, but it looked pretty good. I mean, that one's definitely my favorite of the 3. Let's see what the rating was on IMDb. 7.1 out of 10. Wow. Thanks for watching Filmmaker Reacts. More episodes coming soon. Let's mix it up on this episode and just start out with the poopy stuff. The screen is really freaking hard to judge focus. It's low resolution. It's not very bright at all. I do like that it rotates, but the quality of it is kind of garbage. There are some moire patterns that I noticed on some shots that I gathered. I think when I was filming toward the light and it would wrap around a subject, there would be some weird like nastiness sometimes around the lines. The build quality is clearly made of some sort of plastic system. It's not super fragile, but I expected it to be a little bit more robust. But I mean, what can I say? I mean, this camera's from 2012 and it's still working perfectly fine. The one I bought is kind of beat up too, but it's still going. Now let's see if the pros outweigh those cons. The first pro is the price. When it dropped, it was pretty dang expensive, but just a couple years after it came out, the price started dropping dramatically, and now it's very affordable. Riggability. This thing has got some mounting points, quite a few on the bottom, some on other parts of the body. The cold shoe's in a weird place, but you can build out this camera to function how you need it, which is great. It takes SD cards, which is great. I'm using a modern Sony Tough card in this thing, and it works perfect. Also, it takes Sony NPF batteries, which are cheap, readily available. You can get big chunkertons that will let this camera shoot all freaking day. It actually has decent colors. It's not the best thing in the world. It's not like the A7S III here, but it looks pretty dang good for an older camera. And when I threw the footage into Resolve, I was actually able to pull the highlights down quite a bit and get a little detail back, and I was still able to manipulate the colors a little bit to make the skin look a little bit better, and it didn't make the image totally fall apart. So if you're careful with your adjustments, you can manipulate it in post relatively well. So the final pro I'll end with is the design. It's very strange. It's kind of goofy and clearly an experiment, but it has tons of functionality. I think I'm finally learning in 2024, 12 years after this camera came out, that the camcorder design is really good, very functional, and it's really cool to experiment with this thing and just have that usability. I feel like with mirrorless cameras, you have to rig them out to make them relatively decent to shoot with, whereas they kind of nailed it with these older designs. Like, you don't have to put tons of accessories on them to just go out and shoot comfortably. So the design for me is a pro. It's weird, but I like it. If I'm being honest, most of these retro reviews end with me saying the camera isn't good enough for modern day footage. And that could be for a variety of different reasons, but the FS100 is a different story. The quality isn't the greatest HD image I've ever seen, but for the price and the awesome features you get out of this camera in 2024, crazy to say that, I deem it acceptable. And apparently Sony thinks the same thing, because I was doing some internet digging, typing, finding articles. I stumbled upon Sony's discontinued camera list, and guess what? The FS100 wasn't on it. It's still on their list of current camcorders in their product line, which is fascinating. I don't know if that's just an error or if maybe they actually still see it as a current product. I'm not sure, but you can get them for super affordable prices on the used market. So if you're looking for a quirky video camera to play with, or honestly even a first YouTube camera, I think you should throw the FS100 into the ring. I don't know if you're gonna end up buying it, but I do think it's worth considering if you need footage that's really easy to edit, looks decent, has relatively okay autofocus. Did they make this for YouTube in 2024? I think so.